I'm gonna do the intro. Welcome to the Unapologetically Unstoppable live show. Now, this is our first episode of the live show, and I'm so excited because I've got my new friend Penny. I met her at Podfest a couple of weeks ago, and she's amazing. And I'm so excited to just get started with her. And yeah, here we go. Here we go.
It's going to be great.
Yes. So, Penny, why don't you just tell people a little bit about your journey into entrepreneurship? Because I think it's a great story.
Oh, thank you. I was a government employee, and in order to get my final promotion, I needed to become a CPA. As soon as I became a CPA, I realized that I could probably leverage the certification to uh, create a business when I left government service. And around the same time, my husband and I had sold our house and moved into an RV, recreational vehicle. And we had an opportunity for my husband to retire early. So he did that. And then once that process started moving, we found out that, I would be able to leave my job as well earlier than we anticipated. And so anybody that can see, this is the 4% rule, which is if you can live on 4% of your investments, that means that you can step away from your job. And I went to a personal finance meetup in my area and met somebody that did a virtual bookkeeping business. And I was like, I about fell out of my chair. I was like, I didn't know that was a thing. And it was like, wait, I'm a CPA. And I had spent, so I was a financial investigator when I worked for the United States government. And I spent a ton of time reviewing bad guys' tax returns. So ultimately, it made so much sense for me to, start that type of business. I think one of the things that that, the, it, Jeanette, when you and I were speaking at Podfest, you said there are no coincidences,
Yes.
and things appeared that all through this process, we just kept seeing green lights. And things were presented to me, and I saw them for what they were, and took the opportunity to go for it.
I love that because like for real, I really think there's no such thing as coincidences. And when God is in it, right? When God is like doing the things and he's the author of your steps and you're like, okay, God, this is a new track. I don't really know all the things, all the details. I don't know how this is gonna work. I'm stepping out on faith, God, and he's just like, green light, go, go, go. I got you. I got you. I got you. It's much easier than it's like stepping out on the water and being like, "Ugh, everything's gonna everything's gonna fall apart."
Yep.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that. 4% rule. So my husband is he's the finance guy in our household. And we did Dave Ramsey and we got out of debt a long time ago. We paid off 100 and whatever K in debt. And after we did that, he was really big in like Dave Ramsey's good for getting out of debt, but the investment side is not so much a Dave Ramsey thing. So he just went his own way on the investment side and started like learning all these things about investing and putting things in and now he's like I wouldn't say he's like into crypto. He's got a few things in crypto, but it's still very unstable. So he's like learning all these things and he's younger than me, but he wants to be fully retired by 38. So when he
Nice.
turns 38, he wants to be fully retired and like live off the 4%. There's a book that he read that was really powerful for him, which was The Power of Zero. Have you heard of that one?
No, but I'm gonna keep track of it for later.
So the power of zero, the big idea is I didn't read it, but the big idea was that if you you basically have 0% income, right? Is having the lowest amount of income you can have so that you can live on your investments and you can make like it would be like me and him filing taxes separately from what I understand, I would be making money and he would be living off of our investments and then having this like where we're not paying a bunch of taxes type thing. And I was like, you understand that? That's great. I have no idea what any of that means, but yes.
Awesome.
So I was like, okay. So yeah, I would definitely look into that because I think that could be really good for maybe not even just you, but like your clients and stuff like that on
Mhm,
how
mhm.
to do more things. It seemed legal, but you would know more than I would. Like all that.
Yeah, so one of the what I actually do for people is tax strategy. And
Okay.
when I say tax strategy, people are like it sounds good, right? I'm going to save money on taxes. But the it what I combine with tax strategy is personal finance and financial independence. And so no matter who I talk to, the first thing that I'm going to recommend that they do is to save as much as they possibly can
Yes.
for retirement. And then and quite often my clients, it's most appropriate for thing for them to do when they're getting their $1 million revenue from Amazon every year is they've got enough cash that they need to reduce their taxable income, reduce the
Yes.
amount of income on which they pay tax. So they'll take a current year tax deduction, which is the opposite of a Roth investment. And they'll say, but wait, I can't touch that money until I'm, like 60 or something. And it was like, no, once you want to step out of your business, once you've said, hey, I have another 10 years to run. Once that 10-year window is up, you are either selling your business because it can run without you, or you've saved so much in retirement that you can live off of 4% of your retirement. Either way, you're not bringing in income from a business. You don't have wages. At that point, the next tax strategy is to figure out how much you need to live on from your investments, and just say you
Right.
have $1 million, so that's 400 or $40,000 a year. So what you're going to do when the dust settles is you're going to take 40,000 from your investments that you got a current year tax deduction for, and you're going to convert it to a Roth investment, and you're going to pay
Mm.
that tax, but you're at your lowest tax rate because you're no
Yes.
longer earning, this $1 million. And then
Yes.
and then we convert every single year. And after 5 years, that first $40,000 conversion goes to you tax free
That's
because,
crazy.
yep. And the best way to look at investments is like in a 10-year window. I have a client who is just starting a self-employed pension to get it. And it's uh, basic rule of thumb is that every 10 years your money doubles. So she can put in, because they have really high revenues and not a lot of expenses for the type of clients that I work with. She can put in 70,000 a year,
Yeah. Yeah.
and 10
And then
years that's
just
700,000. You convert, and so you put in 700,000, but it's 1.4 million because it's also going to double while you're putting money in. And all of a sudden, you've gotten above that $40,000 a year number. And the beautiful part of all of this is that you're learning to live on less than you make,
yes.
and you are stewarding, the resources that God, trusted you with for, a short period of time, which is our life.
Yes. Yes. And like a lot of people, I guess people that don't actually have wealth don't understand. I don't need all that big stuff. I don't need all that stuff. Like, just give me a small house, give me a comfortable car, and let me just do my thing. Nobody needs to know that I've got millions of dollars in the bank. Like, that's not what I'm here for. But let me like send your kid to college. I want to do that, but I don't need to fancy car to let you know that I'm rich. I just don't need that. So yeah, when you
Yeah,
have that kind of wealth, it's easy to do those things.
yep. And the millionaire next door said,
Yeah.
the millionaire next door drives a Honda Accord.
Yes. I've got a Honda CRV. So yes. Because it's not about looking they're more comfortable in themselves. It's an identity thing. Like I identify with who I am as a person and I don't need to prove anything to anybody, which is so great. So great. So what did you talk about at Podfest? Because I didn't get to hear you talk.
So I was on a panel with, so I was one of the two CPAs on the panel, and the other person was an attorney. And the topic was, hey, let's help you treat your podcast like a business.
Yes.
And talked about saving for quarterly estimated tax payments, which is something people that have a W-2 don't don't even they might have heard their grandparents talking about estimated tax payments, but they don't realize that the minute you owe $1,000 to IRS, you need to start making quarterly estimated payments. And I use with my clients a system called Profit First,
Oh yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
it's based on a book written by Michalowicz, and he recommends on gross, which makes it easy, top line, if you get paid $10,000 this month, then you put $1,500 in a savings account and that you never touch that. Well, if you want to know when it's time to start making estimated tax payments, you set aside the 15%, put it in a separate bank account. And then once that bank account gets to $1,000, it's time to start making estimated tax payments.
I that whole book, that whole strategy, that whole principle changed my mindset about money and like how to like do it for my business. Because like I said, we were Dave Ramsey. So I was like doing like the Dave Ramsey thing of like saving money for my business and doing it like that. But I was like, then I read that and I was like, oh yes, I need taxes. I need to bring home some. I need to like do all these things with it. And my operating expenses are too high. And it was just game changing because everybody's like, well, you need to have money to make money. Yeah, but I need to do this smartly. I can't just be like throwing things at the wall every single month. It's not going to work.
No, and I love what you just said because he gives you a framework, and I think people's minds work well with you take your top line and you run percentages on it. And you know I use I with my coach my clients to take profit first even farther. I use Ramit Sethi's conscious spending plan,
Mm.
and so and it's percentages so that you could take your personal, instead of a budget, it's 50% to fixed expenses, and I think it's 20% for savings. But you can figure out what you need to live on and then go to Profit First, and Profit First says 50% of your revenue goes to your personal budget. And then you can say, well, that means if I need 10,000 a month in my personal budget, I need $20,000 a month in my business.
Yes.
And so many people have no idea how much of, what they bring in should go out to operating expenses. And it's like, if you just start with 30%, which is, what Profit First recommends, and then to see where you go from there. You may not need to spend that much money, but it gives you a nice framework. You could
Yeah.
always make adjustments up or down, but you don't have to recreate the entire wheel.
Yeah. I love that. I don't think people know how much the operating expenses actually cost sometimes. I would say most of the time because they're like they almost don't want to look at it. It's like money is like the shame, like there's a shame piece in there, right? So they're like, I don't want to look, I don't want to see what it is. I don't want to actually know because then I have to face it. But once you face it, it's like, okay, I know what I'm making. I know where things are. I know what I need to do. I know what I need to adjust. And then it's like almost freedom. Like it seems more freeing to me to know where things are, to know how to adjust things. Yeah,
Yeah.
so good.
And it's just like, I mean, in your business and just like in personal finance, I mean, there's at least two opportunities. You either make more or you spend less.
Yes. Yeah. Easy peasy. It's like weight loss. Calories in, calories out. Like what are we gonna do?
Mhm.
Do we need
Yeah.
to eat more or not? Yeah. So good. So good. So what is the number one thing that you would say that people don't understand about taxes that you wish everybody knew?
So what is funny is that the Tax Cut and Jobs Act made a huge impact, like all across all areas of personal and single member LLC businesses. And one of the things that it did was it doubled the standard deduction. And so
Mm.
I get so many clients who are saying, um, what do I do about my donations and my charitable deductions and my healthcare expenses? And what I wish people understood is that the standard deduction right now is so high that you like if you are a married couple filing jointly and you rent a home, you would need to make $31,000 of charitable contributions in 1 year in
Wow.
order for it to make sense for you to keep track of all that stuff.
That's crazy. $31,000 a year of charitable donations before it even matters.
Yep,
That's a huge deduction. Wow.
yep, yep.
Okay, so my husband says the goal of taxes is to not owe and to not pay. That's the goal.
Mhm.
Do you get people there? Is that a place that you were trying to get them to? Or is it like maybe they pay a little bit or maybe they get back a little bit? Like, what is your goal for them?
My goal for them is the same as my goal for me. I have a threshold. I'm
Yeah.
fine owing $500. I'm fine paying $500. It is a little bit more difficult with, especially in households where both spouses are business owners.
Yeah.
It because it is very difficult. So for business owners, my goal is for them to not have any penalties for
Yeah.
not making enough payments and not actually. So I mean there's failure to file and then there's failure to pay, and so both types of penalties. So I want to make sure that they are making big enough estimated tax payments, and I will tell them, ask them, what's your appetite for this?
Yeah.
How do you feel about this? Are you somebody who wants to pay more, knowing that you get a refund, or are you someone who just wants to make sure you don't have any penalties and
Yeah.
interest? And most of, because of the type of clients that I take and the level of success that they're getting, they have enough cash
Yeah.
to to pay at tax time, which is very different than the appetite I had when I was a W-2 employee. I was like, $500 owed, $500 back. That's all it is. And so I get people to make sure that they are making the minimum quarter estimated tax payments that they need to make and keep them understanding that you are probably, so if you are very successful, which sales continue to grow every year, you're going to owe more taxes, but it's okay
Right.
because you have maintained control of that money, and if you put it in a high yield savings account, people are getting 4% on that.
So it's like making money on taxes instead of owing money. Like you still owe money, right? But it's not like you're just bleeding it out. I
there's
love that.
there's no benefit to you as long as you have the money to pay it when it's due. There's no benefit to you to paying extra. They
Yeah.
don't give you any, you don't get any. you don't get a pat on the back for paying extra.
Yeah. No, they don't care. I love this conversation. I love this. So like when you think about like bringing God into your tax strategy, how do you do that? Do you tell people that you're a Christian? Do you not tell people you're a Christian? Does it matter to you? What does that look like?
I am still working my way through that.
Oh,
I am hoping and praying to have more Christian clients come into my world, and then I don't have to worry about it.
yeah.
If um so every day, thank you for the prayer series that you put out, and every day I am, praying for connection. I'm praying for, doubts to go away, and for the words to come out that he wants to come out, and for me to hear what he wants me to hear. And so I am it ends up that there's a lot of new age
Oh,
type
yeah.
people that are coming into my space, and I am working hard to make sure to not adopt their languages, saying like the universe is, you put it out in the universe and the
Yeah.
universe is get, and it you know it and so I am extra careful to stay biblically grounded when I'm in conversations with people that are talking about moon ceremonies and
Yes. I mean, like, I feel like online, if they're spiritual, it's mostly the New Agers. Like, for some reason, the Christians that well, people that I've met are not like this, but some Christians are almost afraid of the spiritual side of God and the Holy Spirit side because they've been maybe tempted or like talked to by the New Agers and everything. So there's a kingdom of light, right? And there's a kingdom of darkness. And the kingdom of darkness is a counterfeit kingdom of light. So everything that they do as a new ager is just a slight perversion of what is actually
oh,
supposed to be like.
oh,
Yeah.
that's so good, so good.
Because there are things that are like universal laws, right? Of the spiritual realm of being like, even God says, ask and you shall receive, but they take it to a different level,
Mhm,
right? It's perverted. It's not the purity of God and in love and like they're doing it because they want to get something. He's
mhm,
asking us because he loves us and he's our father and he's like, just ask me. I love you. Let just ask me what you want. But they're doing it like I'm going to take over this thing. And so the kingdom of darkness wants to give them what they want so that way more people are attracted to that kingdom mentality. Yeah.
mm,
So tricky, that guy. So tricky.
yeah, yeah, yes, yes.
But yeah, so like be strong in your faith because of the slight perversions. And always ask the Holy Spirit and be like, "Okay, I know that this is what you say versus this is what they say. Where is the difference? Where's the line? Where is that delineation point where I can be like, that's no. That's no." And
Mhm.
a lot of them don't know.
And it's somebody that's in business. I mean, there's two ways to look at it. I have coaches who are, both coaches are Christians, and they don't it's not a Christian coaching program, but they are Christians, and they will coach new age people, and they say, listen, you can tell me whatever you want about your moon ceremony, and I'm still going to tell you what my daughter learned in Sunday school. We could be happy doing business together. But then there's the other way you could look at it and say, well, there's more than enough Christians. I just need to get in front of them.
Yeah.
And so either way is fine, as long as we recognize that we need to stay within our foundations, and
Yeah.
we'll hear words and concepts that are of the dark side. And it's like, oh, wait, that's what that meant. And then
Yeah, yeah,
go back to, biblical principles and say, I'm happy to work with you. I'm not going to say I'm not going to work with you, but you're
right.
going to, for everything that you say that's dark, I'm going to say something that's light.
I think it like I also think it depends, right? So I feel like some people are called to work with non-believers and try and help them through whatever, right? And some people aren't. And I just think that that's up to God of what, you talk to God and like maybe it's okay for some people and maybe it's not okay for some people. And I'm okay for either way, right? That's between you and God. That's none of my business. Like, but yeah,
Mhm.
for sure. I love that for sure. Because I was in a lot of programs that were she was Christian, but a lot of the people in there were not Christian. And,
Mhm. Yeah.
like you said, she was like,
Yeah.
I'm going to talk about scripture. And if you don't want to hear it, that's fine. You don't have to listen.
Yep.
But I'm going to
But
talk
I'm
about
not
it.
going to stop talking about it
Yeah.
just
She's
because.
like, I'm going to talk about it. It's almost like part of her identity. She was like, this is who I am. And so like, I'm going to talk about my hairstyle some days, right? Like, she's going to talk about God some days. Yes. I love that. Where are you at right now? It looks kind of cold there.
No, actually, it's I'm under a umbrella, so the sun is not directly
Oh.
on me. I'm in Central Florida.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's gorgeous here. I no complaints whatsoever. No wind, which is why I'm able to do this outside.
How long did the snow last?
So we didn't have any snow.
Wow.
The snow in so my husband and I lived in Jacksonville, Florida for 20 years, and it snowed in Jacksonville, which is about 2.5 hours. So it was chilly here, but it just rained. Well, we might have had a few like
Flurries.
frozen things coming out of the sky, but it didn't snow, thankfully.
I think it's so crazy that Jacksonville is so far south, right? It's so far south and still got snow. Like, that just blows
Mhm.
my mind.
I think they said they haven't had snow in 70 years.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. So what else is going on? Tell me something more about tax strategy. Tell me something more about how people can work with you. What does that look like for you?
So I love helping moms who own businesses hire their kids. In addition to the
Ooh.
tax strategies I talked about already, um, it, for retirement savings, and the other thing that I really love to work with women entrepreneurs on is if they have health insurance through the ACA or maybe through their spouse, and they have the opportunity to have a high deductible health plan, you can save a ton of money in a health savings account, and
Mm-hmm.
there are amazing benefits from that. So those are really the three that I, almost always try to bring up whenever I talk to a female entrepreneur. Um, you know, it's it once you realize that you can get a current tax deduction or something and then invest it in the market and then know 10 years down the road that it's going to be double, it starts to reshape people's ideas about the possibility that they want to step out of their business at some point,
Yeah.
and they can start today setting aside the money that will give them the freedom in the future. And I talked about, when I was talking about personal finance, and I talked about how my husband and I live in an RV, what our values, so some are many values, but the triangle of freedom is very
Mm-hmm.
important to us.
Yes. Yes.
So financial freedom, location freedom, which is why we live in an RV, and time freedom. I mean,
Yes.
those three, the Venn diagram, in the center is where I want to be. And that's what I want for everybody that I work with. And I what I do with clients, clients who are interested in coming to work with me is I will review their last 2 years tax returns, and I'll talk to them about their, their like how they feel about certain risks and get an idea, and then I'll give them a proposal. And if they choose to work with me, it's basically a 1 year
Yeah.
loose 1 year commitment. And so they'll pay me like on a subscription basis for a year. And then it includes the tax strategy, where I'll go through any number of strategies and make sure, based on reviewing their tax returns, that those strategies are appropriate for them. And then it I'll help them set up whatever they need to set up. And my, my current exciting thing that I like to talk to people about the most is, moms hiring their daughters. And
Yes.
there's quite a bit of setup related to that. And so I can help people, get things set up for that. And then at tax time, I file their income tax. And the way that it makes it, the way that they come up with the money to pay for tax strategy every month is because the strategies lower the amount of tax that they'll need to pay, which lowers the
Mm.
amount of the quarterly estimated payments. And
Hmm.
lowering the quarterly estimated payments for business owners frees up money to pay for a tax strategist.
I love that. It's like strategy on strategy on strategy. Let me help you with this so that way you can do this. And then you can also pay me because I don't want it to like, that makes so much sense. And I love that you're like helping people hire their kids. Like, I've heard about this and I've like looked into it loosely. My kids are so little, but I was like, if I, especially because I'm all about that freedom, girl. Time freedom, location freedom, financial freedom. That's why we started with Dave Ramsey 10 years ago, was because we wanted that financial freedom. And my husband's still in the military, so we don't have location freedom. But I said, I just want to be near an airport so I can have location freedom as much as I can. And I homeschool because I want time freedom. I don't want to be tied to going to their school and doing this and blah, 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 and letting their schedule dictate my life. I can't do that. So I'm obsessed with all of that. And like thinking about bringing my children on to be entrepreneurs, I would rather them never go to college and be entrepreneurs and start making money young and get that head start that I wasn't afforded, because now I know so much more now that I can help them and they could be multimillionaires by the time they're 25. Like I would love
Mhm.
that for them.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's so funny because, those of us that, that did go through college, and, you get all these fancy degrees, and then you
Yeah.
sit down at the job and you're like, oh my goodness, I have no idea what I'm doing. And sometimes business ownership is just like that. It's like,
Yes.
so um, it may surprise you that you can hire your child, if you are the owner of the company, as young as age 7.
Really?
Mhm. It
I
is a
have a 7 year
very
old.
It is it is a very, very unique situation. If you are the owner of the business, the IRS has condoned, it's actually been tested by tax court, that a parent, one parent or the other or both parents together, has to be like, no one else can be part of the ownership of the company, but you can hire your child, and there are some cool savings from that. You don't have to pay into Social Security for your child
Really?
till
Interesting.
until the day they turn 18. You don't
Huh.
have to have federal unemployment insurance for them. And as long as you pay them, now I have three different ways to figure, three different levels of, um, so the current Roth IRA maximum is $7,000. So
Yeah.
that's the lowest level I ask moms to stretch to pay them $7,000. The next level is the standard deduction for a single individual, which is 14,000. So if a mom could pay her child 14,000 a year, her child would have to pay no federal income tax. Now,
Yes.
state's different. And then the third level is if you were to use a traditional IRA for your child, which means they get a current year tax deduction. You can pay the combination of those two. You can pay them the 7, you can pay them the 20, the 14. It gets them up to $21,000. Then they contribute 7,000 to a traditional IRA, get a reduction down to the 14,000, and they pay no income tax.
That's so insane. I'm obsessed. We got to talk offline about this. Yes. Because if she could be making like 14 or $20,000 a year now, do you know how much money that she would
I
like
do. I
like
do. I do because that is so that's my, my tagline is I help mom business owners fund a six-figure legacy by
yes.
hiring their children. And so just invested in the market, just standard, index fund, it'll be about 120,000 if they're they're putting in 7,000 a year from 7 to 17.
Yes.
And that magic time, 10 years, it could double.
Yes. 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 Doing it. Yeah. Because like my husband was looking at like all these other like we should make them a what is it called? A trust, and we should do this and we should do that. We should put like a 50 the whatever the education thing is. I was like, I don't know if they're
529.
yeah,
So
529.
okay, so 529s are good. I'm not against them in any way, but they don't give you a federal tax deduction.
Mm,
They'll give you
okay.
some states will give you a state deduction. But you if you have your child every year contribute 7,000 to a Roth IRA, they can use the money from their Roth IRA to fund their college, and they can take it out without
Yeah.
any tax consequences. And
Yeah.
then your business is getting a tax deduction because it's a legitimate expense, and your child isn't paying tax on it because they are, below
Single.
the level where they need
Yeah.
to pay. So tax
Genius.
wise, that this system is like if a woman owns, mom owns a business and is able to fund this, then it is much more effective. And then if the child goes into the military or loves
Yeah.
the business so much that they decide not to go to school, they've still got the money.
Yeah.
And it can also be used to offset some of the costs of buying their first home.
I love that. I love that. That makes more sense because I was like if they want to be a lawyer or a doctor, yes, they need to go to college, but like a lot of things you don't need to go to college for these days. And like this job that I have now did not exist when I was in high school. You know what I mean? Like I
Right.
couldn't have said, this is what I want to be when I grow up. It didn't exist. Did not exist.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I love that it's so flexible like that. And they can buy their first house. They can choose what they want to do, which is why he was like, let's do a trust. But that makes more sense because now they can, it's more liquid, it feels like.
Hmm. Hmm. Yep.
So good. So good. Penny, you were just like full of like all this like gee whiz knowledge about taxes. Cause that to me it like goes over my head. Oh, one more thing before we go. Um, what is the BOI, the BOI? Is that part of what you do, or is that something you advise your clients on? How does that work for you?
So I don't do it for my clients, but
Right.
I give them all the resources that they need um to to get it done themselves. And I have some clients who are fairly who are not savvy, who were able to do it without any problem.
Okay.
Currently, they don't need to, could change tomorrow, but you don't actually need to do it today, but be ready and be aware that things could change. I mean, with the change in administration, it's more than likely that it's going to die. But what's funny is I was on the opposite side of this as a financial investigator for the United States government, and I know exactly how beneficial it would have been to me as an investigator to have had that access to that level of information.
I love that. I love that. And yeah, I mean, this administration's been changing things like, so you never know. Could be like this or that or flip flop. I don't know. Right now, I'm
Yep.
just, holding on and not looking at the news. It's too much, too much change so soon. I need to all settle down before I do anything or like,
Yeah.
take it all in. Okay. So you've got something at mombizkidstrategy.com called the Legacy Launchpad. Can you tell me just a
Mhm.
little bit about that before we go?
Yep. And I've already talked a bunch about it. And this is so I have three levels of service if people were to sign on to be a client for that. And this is where I help mom business owners hire their kids. So the base level will just be a video series, and the mom would do all the work. And there'd be spreadsheets and checklists and links and stuff like that. The next level would be that they would do all the work, but once they were done, we could have a meeting. I could look it over. We have, two or three back and forth to make sure that the plan is rock solid. And then the top level is where I would do everything. So I would
Hmm.
be creating all uh, the job options, setting everything up. And obviously I need to do, so there's accounts that need to be set up. So the mom would be doing that, but I would be doing all of the implementation and saying, okay, do this, do that. And I would make sure that the plan was rock solid, without having to have so much input from the mom.
I love this. I love this so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much for being here. Thank you so much for spreading your knowledge. We learned about all sorts of stuff today. We learned about taxes, like how to get less, strategy, hiring your kids. We talked a little bit about faith and what that looks like. Thank you so much. This has been
You're
great.
welcome. I loved it.
Me too.